my name is Margaret Adele, and welcome to the Not a Booktube Newbie Tag. I saw Eric from Break Even Books do this, and the minute I saw the title of the video, I knew I was going to make one myself. I have always been a giant fan of the just general concept of a newbie tag. If you don't know, the Booktube Newbie Tag is generally one of the first, if not the first videos a new booktuber will make, because it's literally just answering questions about your channel. And I love this concept of giving people the way in, like opening the door and being like, here's your first video. People search this term just to look for new videos and new booktubers to watch. This is the easiest way to get in, and I love that concept. But I, in no way, shape, or form, can still be called a booktube newbie. So I also like that there's kind of like a check-in, like, okay, you've been doing this for a while. How you feeling? So let's jump right into the questions. Question 1. How old is your channel? My channel was created in October of 2018. I don't remember the exact day, but I remember early on I really wanted to do the Witchathon, readathon that was going on that month. But yeah, I've been doing this for 4.5 years, give or take, coming on 5 this year. And it honestly doesn't feel like that long. It kind of slipped away from me, but it's a lot of fun. I don't know what wave I would be considered a part of. I know some people have tried to come up with the waves of booktubers, first wave, second wave. I have no idea, maybe sixth, but yeah, it's been a fun 4.5 years. The second question is, what are your favorite videos to make? I have 2, actually. One that could be considered the classic on my channel, and one that's definitely newer. So the classic is the indie reviews. I have been doing these since January of 2019, technically December, because that's when I got my first review request, but I have fallen in love with this, and reviews don't tend to do very well on the platform overall, but there's something so much fun about getting to dig into a specific book and go into the themes, the plot, the pacing, the characters, what went well and why, and what could have been done better, and just getting to deep dive into a piece of art knowing that the artist is going to watch it. I know for a lot of people, the idea that the author would see your review is terrifying to them. And yeah, there's been a lot of bad apples in the situation, but I've had a fantastic time of it. I have been doing this for 4 years. I have done at least over 200 at this point. I stopped counting after 100, but it's been so much fun. I've gotten so much out of it, not least of which are the actual books. Both these, you see right here, these shelves, all review copies. All of these sent to me by the authors. And I've gotten to know so many indie authors and develop these closer connections. And so even if the reviews don't do well view count wise, I get so much out of it that I'm always going to keep doing it. It's just something I love so much. And I love the idea that a lot of people see me as the person to look to get into indie books. That's what I love. Whenever someone's like, oh, if you want indie books, you should check out, that's my favorite. Keep doing that. Feel free to tag me in any of those. I need to get into indie books Twitter threads. I love it endlessly. But also, I am coming to love TBR games, which I didn't even think I would. I loved watching other people's TBR games, but I always thought that it wouldn't work for me because I don't tend to do well with a lot of strictures around myself. But then I realized, well, if it's going to be my TBR game, I can decide how it is. I can make all the rules specifically to cater to me. So I made it around TTRPG mechanics. That's why I jokingly call it my TBRPG. It's called Roll for TBR. And I don't give myself any punishments, which I think was the best choice I could have made. I don't have any punishments if I don't beat the TBR, if I don't read it. I just don't get the benefits of the various things that I've built into the game. And I find myself getting so excited, oh, it's almost time. It's almost time to film the next month. What am I going to be reading? I'm so excited. I hope this prompt comes up because I really want to read this specific book. I've done a lot better at it than I thought I would, and I'm really excited for that. Even now as I sit here, I'm okay, I'm halfway through my second to last book on the TBR, and I have one more to get through past that. It's a lot of fun. And thankfully, I think I've built it well enough for me that it doesn't feel like a chore, and in fact makes my reading even more fun. Question 3 is, what is one piece of advice you would give to someone looking to join BookTube? And my knee-jerk reaction here was to do the whole, just jump in, it's a welcoming community. But no, I want to give actual practical advice. And that is, there are no shortcuts to building your channel. There are things like follow for follow threads on Twitter that booktubers do. I've done them before, and we all learned the hard way. Those don't help at all. A lot of times when people do the follow for follow, they actually end up screwing themselves over in the long run, if not making things worse for themselves. Because when you end up with a lot of people who are just following for followers' sake, you don't get a lot of people that actually want to engage with your content specifically. And so you end up with a higher subscriber count, yes, but not a higher view count on the average video. And in some cases, that can actually hurt your channel in the algorithm, because the algorithm is built to try and defend against bots. And so if they see a large subscriber count but not a lot of engagement, they might assume that those people are bots. So you got to go the slow and steady route and just keep churning out content and trying to find both what works in a larger community sense, but also what you like doing. The last thing in the world you want is to have your channel blow up over a video type that you're not that invested in, but now feel pressure to continue doing that video type. So you kind of just have to accept that you're probably going to be small for a while. It's probably going to take a little bit to build up a following, but it can be done, and you can genuinely build up people that want to engage with your content if you do it the slow and steady way. Question 4, since joining, have you run into any unforeseen challenges? Not necessarily unforeseen, but a challenge that is bigger than I was expecting at the time, although thankfully seems to have mostly solved itself at this point, is I was so sure that if I jumped right into BookTube, I could find my indie book people. And I thought it would take a little bit. I thought I would have to maybe convince some people to join the dark side. It took a lot longer than I was expecting. The BookTube community when I joined was not very indie friendly. Not to say that it was openly toxic, but there were and still are a lot of people that will openly refuse to review any self-published work. And so it felt like it took so long to find my people that were reading the kind of books that I read. And it felt like for the longest time, if I wanted any connections in the community, I was just going to have to be reading all the trad books that I was not gravitating towards naturally. Thankfully, this has immensely improved. I've met so many other booktubers now that read indie books. Most readathons now will include some kind of read an indie book, read a self-published book prompt to encourage people to do that. There is an entire readathon just for indie books. I am part of an indie book blogger, booktuber Discord, the Indie Accords Discord. So now it's okay, my people. I found the people that are reading what I read. It took a really long time though. There were at least a couple years where I was not feeling necessarily like I belonged to the community, because it was so hard to find the people that were reading what I already wanted to read. And I felt the pressure definitely to be oh, well, just stop reading what you want to read and read what other people want to read. And maybe you can make friends with people who don't do the hobby the same way as you and just live with that. But thankfully, the overall vibe towards indie books in the community has improved drastically. I still don't think we're there yet. I still don't think it's optimized, but it's a lot better, and I am very thankful for that. Question 5 is, what is your favorite book or series you read because of BookTube? I don't have any specific book or series that I've read because of BookTube, but I do have a general type of book that BookTube turned me on to, and that is essentially queer YA. For example, Cemetery Boys, but also things like Felix Ever After, You Should See Me in a Crown, etc. I would have sworn up and down to you that I hated YA, was not a fan of it, did not care about YA contemporary or all that kind of stuff. And then it turns out, if you make it gay and often people of color, I like it a whole lot more. you know, Henna Wars, Adiba Jigurdar, like a whole bunch of other stuff like that. I'm like, oh no, wait, I can get into YA again. I can get into this. It's still one of the only YA that I'll actually partake in, but I got that much from BookTube. BookTube still has not convinced me on all the other YA books that it loves, but this one, this one specific niche of YA, 100% here for. Question 6. Overall, what is your favorite aspect about BookTube? This one probably has to be the way that it's managed to take reading and make it a communal hobby. Admittedly, I'm not one for reading sprints, but the idea that if you want to read, you can just Google reading sprints, find someone that's on a live stream, hop in, and then read with them and feel like you're reading alongside someone else, and pause and talk about what you're reading, or things like readathons, even as much as some of them got me super stressed out. And I love that we've moved away from the way readathons used to be and have moved on to a much more sustainable variant of readathons. I like the idea of getting to gather together and talk about things and join the servers and challenge each other in that way. That's a lot of fun. I like that aspect. And often reading can feel like such an isolating thing, but having a community around it is a lot of fun. It is a great way to meet people, especially now that we are broadening the kinds of books the community is reading, and I genuinely love that aspect. Question 7 is give a newbie a shout out. And I actually went onto the BookTube Newbie Tag and I looked and I found a video that had been uploaded less than an hour prior, and I watched it, and the first thing I saw was on the bookshelf behind her was an indie book that I had reviewed before on my channel. And so I was like, subscribe. And I was subscriber number 2. And that is Nala from Here There Be Stories. I liked the vibe. Admittedly, yes, some videography issues, but the vibe is there, and that's really what counts, because a lot of these BookTube newbie tags, you see people who feel very awkward because learning how to speak to a camera when nobody else is in the room is something that takes a lot of skill that you can only learn by just doing it. And that's one of the hardest things to learn. Like baseline editing skills are actually easier in comparison, although I'm not the best editor. I do very basic things, but go check them out. I will leave the link to the channel down in the description below, as well as the other questions to this. I'm not going to tag anybody specifically, but obviously if you want to do it, consider yourself tagged. You can even say in the video that I tagged you. Go with the gods. But with nothing else to say, I hope you have a wonderful day and a marvelous tomorrow.